Walters Sports Bar in Navy Yard offers $5 happy hour in both snacks and drinks. To reserve a table, visit waltersdc.com/happy hour.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Here is Correa. And Carlos launches one to left field, down the line toward the corner. Forget about it. This one is going and it's gone. And the Twins have two solo homers against Irvin and lead 2-0. Vargas walks to a good-sized lead. The pitch. Swinging a ground ball toward the middle. Diving stop Correa. He pops up. He throws the stretch and he's out at first. What a play by Correa to save the lead for the Twins.
Here's the set. Duran delivers. And Ruiz hits a high chopper to the right side, charging up the second baseman Farmer. He'll make an underhanded flip to Santana, and the Twins win the game and take the series 2-1.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park, of Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. We on Wednesday afternoon got more good pitching from the Nats and more bad hitting from the Nats. Sound familiar? A 3-2 loss to the Minnesota Twins at Nationals Park to lose the series 2-1. The Nats now have lost 10 of their last 13 games, and for this regular season now are 21-27. And the Nats in 8 of their last 9 losses have scored 3 runs or less. This installment of the Nats Chat podcast is brought to us by the Fred Nats Golden Ticket Night in Northern Virginia this upcoming Saturday evening. Tickets are just at $10 and are available at frednats.com/tickets. The Nats on Wednesday afternoon battled. They rallied. Bottom of the ninth, Joey Meneses leadoff homer to left field to cut the deficit to 3-2. Then Luis Garcia Jr. opposite field single to left field. Then Ildemaro Vargas, a sacrifice bunt. That was interesting. But then Joey Gallo, strikeout. Keibert Ruiz, first pitch ground out. And that was your ball game. The Nats on Thursday have their last scheduled off day until Monday, June 10th. And Mark, the batters on this Nationals ball club have some things to be thinking about on that off day.
You know, Al, we've seen this game countless times already this year. For some reason, maybe it's just because it's fresh in my mind, this one felt the most aggravating of them all to me because of the opportunities they had late in the game, because of who they had at the plate in those situations, because of their strategy. Speaking of that bunt, I'm sure we have plenty to discuss about that. And given the fact that the end result at the end of all that sure felt predictable in a lot of different ways, given who it was that was at the plate in those spots. And so to me, this one was especially aggravating, and they keep building on themselves. And it's getting tough to watch this sometimes because the pitching staff is doing everything it can to give them a chance to win games. And the lineup is not even doing the bare minimum. They don't need these guys to score a lot of runs. They just need them to come through once or twice in a big spot. And it's not that they're not coming through, but it's the way they're not coming through that is truly aggravating, I'm sure, to many fans out there. Well, I can tell you it's aggravating to me just watching it as an observer. And I felt like the 7th and 9th innings of this game, especially, it just felt like this was a new low for them.
Baseball is so funny. The Nats have been without their best starting pitcher from last season for so much of this season. And who the heck knows when he's coming back at this point. And yet the Nats are pitching like crazy. They are getting by far their best starting pitching since the 2019 World Series championship season. Make no mistake, the starting pitching, really the pitching as a whole, is postseason caliber. What the Nats are getting right now is playoff caliber pitching, even without Josiah Gray. But the offense is letting this team down big time. What would the record be if the offense was just decent? I mean, think about that. The offense right now is not decent. The Nats in this game on Wednesday afternoon, just 2 runs, just 7 hits, which were a solo homer, a double, and 5 singles, just 1 walk, 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Can we talk about Joey Gallo? You asked Davey Martinez during his postgame presser about Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo killed the Nats in this game. He has the Nats starting first baseman and number 7 batter, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position, including in the bottom of the 9th, striking out with a runner on second, 1 out, and the Nats trailing 3-2. Your Joey Gallo OPS for this regular season, 556. Yes, he has drawn some walks. Give him credit for that. But he is hitting for like no power, slugging percentage of just .284. And he really hurt the Nats on Wednesday afternoon, not coming through in those big spots.
He killed him in this game. And he's not alone. He's not the only one. But he was in a prime position to do something if he just put the bat on the ball. And the problem is, if you've followed this guy's career at all, you know that the hardest thing in the world for him to do is put the bat on the ball. Not saying to get hits. I'm just saying to put the bat on the ball. And those 2 at-bats were the perfect example of it. They just need him to make contact. And they're probably, certainly in the 7th inning, they're going to score a run because there's a man on third with nobody out. Come the 9th inning, it's a man on second with 1 out. So he does kind of need a hit there. And the quality of at-bats is just not good. He is swinging at pitches that are not real hittable, and he's taking strikes. I mean, that first strikeout, he took a 2-2 fastball over the plate. And it was one of several called strikes in the at-bat. The problem is, this is who he is, like we said. And so that's why I said so much of this felt predictable. I'm sorry to say, but he came up in those 2 spots. I never once for a moment thought, oh, he's going to come through here. I will admit I looked up his baseball reference page just so I was ready in case he somehow hit a fly ball and got the runner home from third. It would have been career sacrifice fly number 4 for him. Well, he's still stuck on 3 because he can't do that. And I asked him after the game, like, when you get to those spots, is there an adjustment? Do you take a different approach than you would, or is it just kind of the same thing that you always do? Because it feels like to those of us watching the game, his approach doesn't change at all based on situation. He says, no, you absolutely do. You know what the game is calling for. But he hasn't been able to do it, and he acknowledges he hasn't been able to do it. And boy, it is aggravating. And it's also why, as we'll get to here, I really didn't like the decision to bunt in front of him, as if you're now putting the game in his hands, knowing what his track record is.
What's amazing is this. So if you're going to sacrifice bunt, that's actually the spot in which to sacrifice bunt. You need a run super late in the ball game. There actually is an argument there for sacrifice bunting. The analytics will back that up. But yes, you do it to get to Gallo, who is reeling right now, and you do it with a guy in Ildemaro Vargas, who plate appearance per plate appearance is one of your best batters this season. Ildemaro was at it again on Wednesday afternoon. Starting third baseman, number 6 batter, 2 for 3 with a double and a single. Bottom of the 4th, a 2-out opposite field single to left field on an 0-2 pitch. And Vargas in the Nats 1-run 7th, opposite field double to the right center field gap. When he plays, he produces. He gives you good at-bats. Vargas for this regular season has an OPS of 840. And so on a team that is thirsting for any kind of offensive production, this guy is giving you offensive production. And yet in a big spot like that, you have him purposely committed out. That was tough to take.
Yeah, all right. Here's the full story of that at-bat based on what Davey said and rewatching it and some things. He's saying that Vargas squared around himself on the first pitch. And if you go back and watch it, it was like this half-hearted sort of stick the bat out and then pull it right back and take the strike. Almost like he never really intended to try to bunt the first pitch, but just to sort of show something. I don't know. Davey is saying that he did that one on his own. Now, once he's behind in the count 0-1, Davey puts the sack bunt sign on and Vargas gets the next one down to move him up. I don't get that. I don't like that. I don't know why he'd be trying to do it himself. I don't know why you do this half-hearted attempt that didn't even look like he wanted to get it down. You have to be aware of who's up, who's on deck, what the situation is, and who's on base. They had Nasim Nunez pinch running for Luis Garcia at first. To me, the play there is you got to try to steal second. And now a simple base hit by Vargas, something that he has shown to be quite good at, scores him, and the game is tied. And instead, you give up an out. You just advance your guy to second base without giving him a chance to get there on their own. And now you're asking the least productive hitter in that situation to come through for you. So I didn't like anything about the way that scenario was strategized or ultimately the way that it played out. I get, we're nitpicking on one moment, but for this team, you have to, because this is their only real shot to try to win the game. And I just did not like the way that went at all.
There's another guy who is really hurting the Nats right now, and it was very interesting. During Davey's post-game presser, he unsolicited called out this guy, and that guy is C.J. Abrams.
We got to stop chasing. Our shortstop's chasing a lot. We got to get him back in the zone.
Abrams on Wednesday afternoon went 0 for 4. He was the Nats starting shortstop and number one batter for each of the 3 games in this series. He over the 3 games went a combined 1 for 12 with a double and no walks. He was so good in April, no question. We sung his praises a ton in April. He, for this month of May, has been really bad. Your Abrams slash line for this month of May now, batting average at .205, on base percentage of .222, a slugging percentage of .256. All of those extra base hits that we saw in April have evaporated. And Davey, during his post-game presser on Wednesday afternoon, again, unsolicited. He was not asked about C.J. Abrams. He was asked about more, what do you want to see from your batters moving forward in this upcoming series against Seattle? And Davey said Abrams right now is chasing pitches outside of the strike zone a lot. Abrams is really hurting this team. He's the regular number one batter, as he should be. I'm not trying to say that should not be the case, but he's coming up as much as anyone, and he's not producing. He's not producing at all this month. This has been a really bad month for Abrams.
Yeah, and Davey's 100% right. He is chasing. There was one at bat, I think it was the 3rd inning, he flied out to left. He did not get a single pitch in the strike zone, and he swung at most, if not all, of those pitches. He is absolutely out of his element right now, and it's really unfortunate because he was so good in that first month. I don't know what exactly changed. I mean, he did very briefly move down to the 2 spot with Jacob Young leading off. I don't think that alone is what got him out of whack. He certainly hasn't helped to put him back in the leadoff spot because he continues to struggle. But when so many others on the team aren't hitting, you really can't afford for your table setter, the guy who makes you go, to be in this kind of slump as well. And so, yeah, he is hurting them. And you feel bad putting that kind of pressure on a kid that young. But we talked about it earlier in the year, when C.J. Abrams is going well, the team is going well. When he's not going well, it's very obvious that they as a team are not hitting well either.
And I think what is especially disappointing about this is when we saw Abrams bust out last August and finish last season with good numbers and then have the good April, you said to yourself, okay, he has arrived. This now is who he is. What we're seeing from Abrams in this month of May is what we saw from him, say, last season, April through July. And that was a guy who was inconsistent at best. And so you can't say that he has arrived, because if he had arrived, he wouldn't be having a month like this. Now, guys go in slumps, I understand that, but to have a month this bad speaks to there's still development that needs to take place. And so we probably do need to slow our roll in planting the flag of victory of, hey, C.J. Abrams is here to stay. He's a force, onward and upward. We're not there yet with him.
No, and maybe there's a case of pitchers now having more of a book on him and figuring out whatever he was doing well in April and try and take advantage of that by taking a different approach with him. I don't know if that's the case, but that could be something. Maybe he just got a little swing happy after having such a great month. Whatever the case, he's really got to work to get himself out of this thing, because he needs to be dynamic for them. They can't afford for him not to be hitting for them. And it has unfortunately been tough to watch, and it has really taken the luster off of what was shaping up to be, we're talking about an all-star first half for him, and who knows how it's going to work out. We still got a ways to go. But at the moment, he's played himself out of that conversation here over the last several weeks.
Fredericksburg Nationals. When it comes to fun, we hit a home run.
Summer is here and the Fred Nats are back home all week. Treat the family to a night of pure imagination and fun this Saturday for Golden Ticket Night, presented by Mary Washington Healthcare. The Fred Nats will take the field in specialty jerseys, which will be auctioned off after the game. Fans can also bring a stuffed animal for our first ever post-game teddy bear toss, presented by FH Fur. Help us cover the outfield. All stuffed animals will be donated to hospitalized children in the Fredericksburg region. It'll be a night filled with fun. Tickets starting at just $10 are available now at frednats.com/tickets. Come see the future stars of the Washington Nationals right down the road in Fredericksburg.
Fredericksburg Nationals. When it comes to fun.
Hey guys, Al Galdi here to tell you about the latest offer from Window Nation for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. The time has come. The time for Window Nation's semi-annual sale. 50% off all window styles plus 0% interest for 5 years and an additional bonus if you schedule an appointment this week. This runs through the end of the month. You know, many so-called wood or composite windows are actually made from waste materials like wood fibers and cannot beat the efficiency of Window Nation's insulated vinyl windows. Window Nation's vinyl windows can do everything that you need and at a fraction of the cost of wood or composite windows. You see, nobody does windows like Window Nation does. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. Again, that deal, the semi-annual Window Nation sale. 50% off all window styles plus 0% interest for 5 years and an additional bonus if you schedule an appointment this week. 866-90NATION or windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION or windownation.com. And make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi from the Nats Chat podcast sent you.
The best way to learn a language? Immersion. Living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if that's not in the cards this year, you could still learn a language the second best way. And that's with Babbel. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Here's a special deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners for a limited time at babbel.com/natschat. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/natschat. That's spelled BABBEL.com/natschat. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hasn't blown a save. Those have come in tie games. And a swing and a high fly ball to deep left field by Meneses. This is way back. Going. Gone. Goodbye. That off a splitter at 95 miles an hour. Bang! Zoom goes Joey Meneses with just his second home run of the year. And he makes it a one-run game. It's now Minnesota 3 and Washington 2.
Well, the Nats had 7 hits in this game. 6 of the 7 hits came from just 3 players. We talked about Ildemaro Vargas with his 2 hits. Joey Meneses had another nice game. Meneses as the Nats starting designated hitter and cleanup batter, 2 for 4, solo homer. Yes, Meneses homered. He also had a single. Meneses in the bottom of the second, a leadoff opposite field single through the right side of the infield, and Meneses in the Nats' 1-run ninth, leadoff homer to left field to cut the Nats deficit to 3-2, just his second home run of this regular season. But he had the double in Game 2 of the series, gets the homer in this Game 3. Good to see that. Maybe some of that Meneses power that we've been searching for since August and September of 2022 is coming around here.
Yeah, and to see it in both ways. The line drive to right center the other night and then to pull a ball for a home run in the 9th inning of this one. That's a tough closer, guy who throws really hard, has good stuff in Duran of the Twins, so that was nice to see. It's a shame that they were down 2 runs at that point after the insurance run was given up in the top of the inning, although who knows, Duran might have faced him differently if he had a 1-run lead as opposed to a 2-run lead. But we've talked about, we know there are moves coming, and right now, if you're Joey Meneses, you've got to be looking over your shoulder and be worried about your job status. So the best way you can keep yourself in the big leagues is to come through. And at least the last 2 days, he has started to look more like the guy that he was a couple years ago. I don't know that's going to erase everything else that he's done. It may be too late for him, but he's got to, the best he can, keep trying to deliver and keep himself on this team and in this lineup for now.
Also with 2 hits for the Nats on Wednesday afternoon was Luis Garcia Jr. He has the starting second baseman and number 5 batter, went 2 for 4 with 2 singles. With Meneses being a bit better lately, Victor Robles did not start a single game in this series. We don't know for sure that Lane Thomas will be back for this weekend, but it feels like he's coming back soon. I would think the betting favorite in terms of who is the odd man out once Thomas is ready is Robles. Is that how you're reading things?
That's how I feel based on, like you just said, the fact that he's not playing anyways, and you're about to add another outfielder. Jacob Young is their starting center fielder now, playing ahead of Robles. So when Lane Thomas comes back, you're not sending Jacob Young down so that you can now start Robles in center field. I don't see why you would do that. I think the only justification for it not being him would be the fact that he has to be DFA'd, that he's out of options. And Meneses does have options. So if the sole goal here is to keep as many players in the organization as you can and not risk losing them, you could maybe make a case for Meneses. Although, as we just said, in the last 48 hours, he started to hit a little bit and is actually being used as opposed to Robles, who's not being used at all. So to me, it feels like Robles is the move there whenever that happens. If there was another one to be made, I would guess Meneses would be the backup plan if they decide they don't want to risk losing Victor Robles altogether. But I mean, my God, they've kind of buried him anyways at this point. So I'm not sure why they would be that motivated to avoid having to put him on waivers at this point.
Well, as we said in the opening segment of the show, the Nats right now are getting playoff caliber starting pitching. And the biggest bright spot for the Nats in this 3-2 loss to the Twins on Wednesday afternoon by far was starting pitcher Jake Irvin. He was terrific. 2 runs in 6 and a third innings, 6 strikeouts versus no walks. Gave up just 5 hits, which were 2 first pitch solo homers and 3 singles. He issued a hit by pitch, but he threw a truckload of strikes. Remember that preseason emphasis that Mike Rizzo placed on Nats pitchers throwing strikes? Jake Irvin took that to heart. Irvin is throwing so many strikes in his outings this season. Irvin on Wednesday afternoon, 84 pitches, 59 strikes versus a mere 25 balls, a strikes to balls ratio of well beyond 2-1. In terms of the 2 homers given up by Irvin, top of the second, he gave up a leadoff first pitch homer by Max Kepler to right field for a 1-0 Twins lead. The homer went a projected 409 feet per Statcast, and Irvin in the top of the 6th gave up a 2-out first pitch solo homer by Carlos Correa to left field for a 2-0 Twins lead. But beyond the 2 homers, Irvin was so good. Your Jake Irvin stats for this regular season now: 10 starts, ERA of 3.79, whip of 1.07, walks per 9 innings of 1.42. By far the best among Nats starting pitchers. He's not necessarily a high strikeout guy, but man, does he do a good job of limiting the walks, and he continues to put together a really nice season.
And he's reached the 7th inning twice in his last 3 starts now, which is a great sign for him because he's efficient enough to keep the pitch count down. Now, the Twins were very aggressive against him, and he maybe took advantage of that to some extent, although ironically, both home runs were on the first pitch, so kind of live by the sword, die by the sword. But it's really been nice to see the development there and now the consistency of him start to start. It's not just one really good start out of 3 or 4. He's stringing them together. That has been really one of the most significant developments of the season to date, I think. Someone they hoped could be part of the plan in the rotation at the back end is pitching like a guy who not only is going to be a part of the rotation, but maybe higher up in the order than we would have thought all along.
You know, background can have so much to do with perception. And because Irvin was never really a highly touted prospect, you know, this is not a guy who was taken like high in the first round. He was a 4th round pick in the 2018 MLB draft out of the University of Oklahoma. He's not necessarily on the radars of like casual Nationals fans. But obviously, if you're a hardcore Nats fan, you know him. If you listen to this podcast, you know him. But, you know, I was thinking about this. Like, if Cade Cavalli was doing what Jake Irvin is doing, a big deal would be made out of that. And so just because Irvin isn't a first-round pick doesn't mean that a big deal shouldn't be made out of what he's doing here. Like, he is asserting himself as a fixture in the Nationals' major league rotation. He was doing this last season. He's been even better so far this season. And, you know, with the caveat of let's see more, he's giving you what you want from a starting pitcher. And I don't think enough good things can be said about that. Like, is he an ace? No, but maybe they have like a number 3 starter, let's say, in Jake Irvin. Like, I think that's possible. And I think that that's a really significant deal.
Think about it this way. This is the 20th season of Nationals baseball. Is there any other comparable pitcher, homegrown pitcher, you can think of who has done what Jake Irvin has done? You know, Jordan Zimmerman was not a first-round pick, but he was a high second-round pick, so there was a little more pedigree for him. Otherwise, you know, we've discussed all the issues they've had drafting and developing their own, and especially in a pitching standpoint. I mean, anybody else who's done well has been a first-round pick or was acquired from someone else. I think this is almost unprecedented for them in 2 decades. And that's such a great development to see. And add Mitchell Parker to the equation as well, if he keeps it up. It's so important. He doesn't need to be an ace. They don't need him to be a frontline starter. They just need him to be a good major league pitcher. And that's exactly the way he's going right now. And the more he does it, the more you say this is legitimate and don't worry that it's a fluke. Now, it's not fully established yet. Of course not. Still got a ways to go for that. But it's hard when you take a step back and look at what he's done since coming up last year. It is hard not to be excited about it, both for him personally, but for the organization, because they've desperately needed someone like this to emerge from the pack over the years. And maybe they finally got one in Jake Irvin.
So I've actually thought about the question that you just asked, and the only comp I could come up with is Tanner Roark, who the Nats did not draft, but they got him early enough in his development to where they did develop him to at least some degree, got him in the Christian Guzman trade of 2010. So that's the closest that I could come up with was Roark, but they technically did not draft him. So I don't know if you want to count him or not.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good comp. And if Jake Irvin becomes Tanner Roark, that's fantastic. Like, that's exactly who he could be for them. Roark was a starter and a good starter on playoff teams. That's 100% what you would love for Jake Irvin to be.
From groan-worthy dad jokes to patching up skinned knees, your dad is one of a kind. This Father's Day, give him a gift that is guaranteed to take him to his happy place. Omaha Steaks. Order mouth-watering gift packages starting at just $89 when you go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code NATSCHAT at checkout. Each package is backed by their unconditional money-back guarantee. Show your dad the love he deserves with a gift as unforgettable as he is. Visit omahasteaks.com, promo code NATSCHAT at checkout.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
This weekend, Julio Rodriguez and the Mariners come to D.C. and make Game Time your spot to buy tickets for the series. Tickets are as low as $9. There are seats available down the third baseline in the $37 range. Game Time is proud of their ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They also offer a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code NATSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code NATSCHAT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Now a pitch, swinging a ground ball through the hole, a base hit left field. Rounding third and heading for the plate is Kepler. The relay is not in time. He scores, and the Twins lead by 2. Ryan Jeffers, a ground ball single through the hole. The Twins lead 3-1.
The Nats bullpen in this 3-2 loss to the Twins on Wednesday afternoon did allow a run. 2 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. But good stuff from Robert Garcia and with inherited runners. So nice to see this. He tossed 1 1/3 perfect innings. Hunter Harvey did allow a run in 1 1/3 innings. But, I don't really have the appetite to nitpick the bullpen. Okay, you give up 3 runs, you should win. The Nats pitching right now is really good. And if your bullpen gives up a run now and again, okay, fine. You can live with that. The offense is what you blame here for this loss.
Yeah, I agree. Hunter Harvey's been really good. The only shame of it was that turned out to be a huge insurance run in the end and changed the whole bottom of the 9th. But I can't fault him. He's been incredibly good for them and really hasn't even pitched that much here lately. He and Finnegan are getting plenty of rest after worrying about overuse not that long ago. They're getting plenty of rest because this team is losing games and not in a position to use their top 2 relievers.
So next up for the Nats is the off day on Thursday and then a 3-game series against the American League West leading Seattle Mariners at Nationals Park. Game 1 Friday evening, 6:45. Game 2 Saturday afternoon, 4:05. Game 3 Sunday afternoon, 1:35. When it comes to the James Wood watch, it is after this series that the Nats have a stretch of 7 consecutive games on the road, 4 games at the Atlanta Braves, 3 games at the Cleveland Guardians. The presumption has been that if the Nats are going to call up James Wood, it would be for a home series. It's not definite, but that just would make kind of logical business sense to whatever extent business operations enter into the equation on something like when you promote a top prospect. If the Nats were going to call up James Wood, they wouldn't do it mid-series against the Mariners, right? They would do it Thursday or Friday, or you think it's possible they would call him up mid-series?
I mean, I would, if it's me and I want to try to drum up some hype for it, I would make an announcement on an off day, like Thursday, and give people 24 hours advance to know he's about to make his debut the next night. That's what an off day allows you to do, as opposed to announcing it late Friday night in advance of a Saturday afternoon game. Now, it's not always how it works. It's not always the perfect scenario, and other things come into play for that. So I don't personally feel like this move is about to happen. Doesn't mean it couldn't. Maybe Mike Rizzo's finally said, okay, no, enough's enough. It's time to do this. I feel like they're more likely to bring Lane Thomas back first, see how things go with that. Remember, and again, I'm not saying this is a valid excuse for it, but when you call up James Wood, somebody's getting bumped out of a starting outfield job. Are you going to bump Jacob Young, who's done a nice job in center? Or are you going to bump Jesse Winker, who has done a nice job, or Eddie Rosario? And in the case of Winker and Rosario, I'm sure they're still thinking about trying to boost their trade value. And you hope they don't wait until late July to finally make this move. But because of the timing with Lane Thomas seemingly very close to returning, it feels like they're not going to make those two moves in unison, that you would have Thomas first and then eventually Wood. But it's been hard to get a real read on this. And for all we know, Mike Rizzo just one morning is going to wake up and say, yeah, you know what? It's time. Let's make the call.
One more thing. I was thinking about this. So when the Nats had all of those good rotations during all of the winning seasons, right? 2012 through 2019, there never really was a season in which the pitching was good, but the offense was bad. Like maybe the pitching was better than the offense, but the offense was always at least decent, if not a lot better than decent. And when the Nats were bad, 06 through 2010, maybe 2011, they were around 500. It was kind of everything was bad, or at least not very good. Has there been a national season like this where the pitching is really good and the offense is really bad? Have we had a Nats team with that kind of discrepancy?
The only one, and I've thought about this myself, I feel like 2011 kind of played along these lines. Maybe not quite to this extreme, but I feel like I remember thinking that team was getting good pitching and not scoring runs, that they were losing games because of that. That team was 12th in runs scored in the National League, 12th in OPS, 14th in batting average, so kind of close to the bottom of the barrel. In pitching, they were 6th in ERA, only 15th in strikeouts. They weren't striking out batters, but they had a low ERA and a whip below 1.3. That might be the closest example of it. That was a year in which you had John Lannon with a 3.7 ERA, Jordan Zimmerman, 3.18 ERA. Jason Marquis was actually all right. Levon Hernandez. Chen-Ming Wong in 11 starts had a 4.04 ERA. The bullpen was good. Storen, Clippard, Todd Coffey, Sean Burnett. Those were kind of the beginning inklings of a team that was starting to come together. I and a lot of people have wondered, could this be like a 2011 season where they hover around 500 and then really go for it next year and are ready to win? And so in some ways, not exactly the same. That team hit for more power. I'm looking at 3 guys who hit 20 plus homers on that team. But in some ways, there are some similarities. I think that was more of a pitching team than a hitting team. And it turned out they were a year away from being really good.
Well, it was during the 2011 season, during a series against Seattle, that we had the Jim Riggleman scenario. And looky, who is next up for the Nationals? Seattle. Is Mark Zuckerman foreshadowing something with Davey Martinez this upcoming series? We'll see.
Oh, God, I hope not. I do not want to deal with that one again, nor I don't think the Nationals should want that to happen either. I know it all worked out in the long run, but man, that was a crazy 48 hours that was not good for the organization, I don't think.
That was off a walk-off win over the Mariners. The Nats were playing so well, and from a Washington, D.C. sports perspective, that was on a Thursday afternoon. It was the day of the 2011 NBA draft, an NBA draft in which the Wizards had 2 first-round picks and blew it with both selections with Jan Vesely and Chris Singleton. So not a banner day in Washington, D.C. area sports. You can hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast @gmail.com, including if you would like to sponsor the show. And this installment of the show is brought to us by the Fred Nats Golden Ticket Night in Northern Virginia this upcoming Saturday evening. Tickets are just $10 and are available at frednats.com/tickets. We have a website that we invite you to check out, natschatpodcast.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Primary Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on June 4th, it's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.